evil plans eventually come unraveled in God's time? Let's look at Esther chapter 6. How did the king remember about Mordecai previously saving him? That night the king could not sleep, so he gave instructions to bring the book of records, the Chronicles, and they were read to the king. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had reported about Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, who guarded the entrance to the restricted areas of the palace, and that they had conspired to assassinate King Ahasuerus. So the king asked, what honor and distinction was bestowed on Mordecai for this? The young men who served the king answered, nothing was done for him. Who happened to show up to talk to the king just about that time? And the king said, who's in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak to the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he'd prepared for him. And the king's servant said to him, behold, Haman stands in the court. And the king said, let him come in. How did Haman advise the king about honoring a man? So Haman came in, and the king said to him, what's to be done for the man whom the king delights to honor? And Haman said in his heart, whom would the king delight to honor more than me? Then Haman said to the king, for the man whom the king delights to honor, let him bring a royal robe which the king clothes himself in, and the horse on which the king has ridden, and on whose head a royal crown has been placed. And let the robe and the horse be given over to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes. And let them clothe the man whom the king delights to honor, and lead him on horseback through the city square, and call out before him, thus it shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. What was Haman forced to do in regard to Mordecai that caused him to mourn? Then the king said to Haman, quickly take the robe and the horse just as you've said, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who's sitting at the king's gate. Don't fail to do anything of all that you have said. So Haman took the robe and the horse, and dressed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, so it shall be done for the man whom the king desires to honor. Then Mordecai returned to the king's gate, while Haman hurried home, mourning, with his head covered. And Haman informed Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends of everything that had happened to him. Then his wise men and Zeresh his wife said to him, if Mordecai, before whom you've begun to fall, is of Jewish origin, you will not prevail over him, but will certainly fall before him. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived, and quickly brought Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. How can we trust God to work through all kinds of difficult situations and preserve us for all eternity? And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Do evil plans eventually come unraveled in God's time? You decide.